Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in for the Noontime News and Politics Show. Would like to welcome regular Bob Whitcomb.
Thank you. First of the new year.
First of the new year.
The new year is already feeling old. I'm ready for the next one.
And even though
I don't like odd numbers either.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Oh,
very unsettling.
No, I definitely am like a little
OCD.
OCD.
Only be even numbers.
I'm definitely very OCD like that. So let's agree that we're not keen on 2019. Yeah. Speaking of numbers and speaking of times, it's just after noontime. I believe the Foxy Lady reopened at 11:30 this morning.
A couple of weeks ago, I thought it was closed forever. It is a crime scene, but that's the First Amendment, right? I think the other reason they kept it open is one of the few successful businesses in Rhode Island.
Someone made the point, I believe.
Also, it's about art, and this is an aesthetic state. We've got RISD here. This is performance art, right? So it's a successful thing, and it's something we have a comparative advantage in, art, and so it's perfect. I think the Foxy Lady should actually be part of RISD.
We do have a lion's share of adult entertainment offerings here in the state. Yeah. But, it was interesting. The thing that the Foxy had raised at the DBR and at Supreme Court, mostly I was at the DBR, was this idea of progressive justice, if you will. Right. So they had basically no violations up until this past couple weeks in the solicitation.
But everybody knows some of the stuff that's gone over there. I mean, I know it from my many years of business meetings there.
Well, 11:30 this morning.
Conference center, basically. It's probably Providence's most successful conference center, most profitable one. Anyway.
I wonder if we'll hear any more of it moving forward. It certainly got a lion's share of attention in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it got attention all over New England because it's famous all over New England. I think the whole story will fade for a while. Yeah.
Well, we shall see. I know the DBR said this morning when they issued the stay they need the detailed Fridays and Saturday nights and before state holidays. Like apparently before state holidays are.
It's certainly open at religious holidays.
And of course, the Supreme Court said no VIP area. So there's stipulations. So there's maybe a chilling effect over at the.
Very impertinent persons. Very importune persons.
Speaking of job numbers, the numbers that came out today at the federal level, December up 312,000 jobs.
Employment rate, I think, went up slightly, but that's only because more people looking for a job.
Could be the case.
I think that's it. I think we will have a recession. I think it'll probably start later this year. And I think this is probably about the crest. Just looking at the other things that are going on with the trade war, industrial production is beginning to slip. As though it's a sort of lag time. No, I will not be happy if we have a recession, since I'm living on, especially a recession in the stock market, since I'm basically living on, as most geezers are, living on old investments. So I will not be happy, whatever this does to Trump, but I do think we're at the crest. I think it's going to be downhill.
We'll see what happens.
And it'll be like that. There'll be peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys in this odd year.
Yeah, quite right. I think we're heading for a recession.
And speaking of numbers and speaking of hospitals, something that you know very, very intimately, GoLocal had the piece today. Last year, I believe it was when the federal government, there was legislation passed that said hospitals have to disclose the costs.
Right. And
it's nearly impossible.
GoLocal had a good story about that.
It's still impossible.
The other thing, and as I was talking to Josh Fenton a little while ago, this business about, opening up information amongst hospitals and health systems, and opening up, making the information transparent to the doctors who need to know, the nurses and so on, still not happening. It's still very, very thick. You take anybody to the hospital, they're always asking for this information that should be readily available to them, especially in these systems. The case of Lifespan, you've got Rhode Island Hospital, you've got the Miriam and so on. All that information should be immediately available for the treatment of patients there, but it isn't. They seem to keep reinventing the wheel, or not even vetting the wheel at all. So I think it's still a real problem. You know what I'm talking about with Epic, which is the most popular electronic medical record system. Despite that, and it is awkward and all that, it seems to me every time I go into a medical office, a physician group, or a hospital, they still seem to have a great deal of difficulty getting information, even when the information is from other people and other institutions allegedly in their network. So,
well, I'll tell you, I
the
think
data
this
thing,
the data with the cost. I mean, clearly for the hospitals, I mean, they necessarily, inherently don't want to divulge this because it's
not.
a
The
market
cost.
if someone wants to go
Also,
shop
I
something.
mean, American is far and away the most expensive healthcare in the world, and it's time that people see this stuff. It's just astronomical. You can't open the door of an ER without getting stuck with about a $5,000 bill for a hangnail.
Have you been in for a hangnail?
Yeah, right. They do outpatient lobotomies now, though. Thank God for that. Yeah.
Let's move on from healthcare. Let's go a little north of the border.
Yeah.
Closing shortly up in Boston is Faneuil Hall Institution, Durgan Park.
Where obese waitresses insult you as they slam down a big plate of Indian pudding, splattering it all over your face. But yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I know restaurants obviously change with the times, but this has been around forever. I mean, it's a
early 19th century, allegedly. I don't know if that's actually true, but there's some sort of sign.
Forever. I mean, do you think that that's just the case, that people don't want this old puritanical Indian pudding? Or?
Well, I think some of it, this sort of heavy, some people would say Yankee cuisine is oxymoron. But I think there's probably a fall off in that. I like a lot of it myself, clam chowder and all this stuff.
Liver and onions.
I don't eat mammal anymore if I can avoid it, so not so much the Yankee pot roast. But I think there's that. I think there are new sort of hipper places in Boston and other cities, including Providence. I think these sort of smaller places. Certainly the rise of East Asian food, especially Southeast Asian food. And then, of course, the fancy French restaurants and Northern Italian restaurants take a lot of people away from the likes of Durgan Park.
Well, don't forget fancy French restaurants. L'Espalier also
that's closed
at the end of December,
some of these
too.
Institutions are closing.
Going away.
So I think it's a change kind of in taste. Maybe people don't think it's so much fun to sit at a long table and get insulted. I'm not sure.
Well, one has to wonder, is the Union Oyster House the next to go?
I was there actually with occasional GoLocal contributor Jean Lesueur, and it was still very good.
It's a similar aesthetic to Durgan Park, that sort of old Boston colonial feel. You got to wonder.
Very New England, kind of heavy food.
Dark, heavy
cold
wood.
Weather food, heavy wood. And I think it's probably just less alluring to millennials.
Well, a lot of feedback when GoLocal posted it. You can see that on GoLocal now.
I think they blame the minimum wage rise too, but I wonder about that.
If it's just the appeal.
I think it's just changing taste. But it's sad. It's the old Boston. There's a wonderful old place. I have to see if it's still open, called Jacob Wurst, which is a German food. I remember the sawdust on the floor. That's along the
Lockover, I believe,
Lockover, that's kaput.
No longer that. Was speaking of an old Brahmin institution.
The only place in New England to get Vichy swabs. I still remember that. Very cold soup. That was so revolutionary.
No more Vichy swabs. Let's talk a little bit about what we can expect from you in the column this weekend.
Yeah, I talk a little bit about the Governor Raimondo's speech, which is bland but fine, setting up brand. The important thing is everybody notices the budget speech. The budget determines really what the real initiatives are. She did talk about inclusion, which is nice, but I think that inclusion sort of lift everybody's boat. Inclusion is too diffuse a term. Diversity is too diffuse.
You want specifics.
Yeah, I want specifics. And as everybody said, it's become a cliche. The central thing is improve public education. It's a cliche. But it has to be done. It will take many, many years. We can't get up to Massachusetts anytime soon, partly because Massachusetts is a much richer state. And, much bigger, much richer. But we can start. I also suggest to the governor in this, and I don't think she really addressed. We have an affordable housing problem here.
That we do.
One way to address that, as sort of Brian Bishop did in his very long commentary in GoLocal, was to get rid of zoning, or at least change the zoning laws, get away from this obsession with single-family residency, and tolerate more density in some places, more density. And encourage in tax laws and regulatory laws the construction of more multifamily housing in some neighborhoods that are now just single family. And there are a number of things you can do there which I think are very important. The other thing is one reason Greater Boston is so prosperous is they have a lot of rail. They have a lot of commuter rail. They have subways. I think Rhode Island, which is still the second most densely populated state in the Union after New Jersey, I think we should start looking to build light rail lines here. Call them trolleys, call them light rail, through the most densely populated areas of the east and west side. We've certainly got a little bit of MBTA service now all the way
I mean,
down
you
there.
talk about maybe revisiting that trolley car proposal
yeah,
that had been
yeah,
floated
yeah,
maybe
that-
about 4 years or so
yeah,
ago.
Yeah. I think from around the train station down to the jewelry.
And of course,
district.
you're a scholar at heart, and you've looked
Yeah.
at other locations. I guess
Yeah.
they've had some success some places, but they also haven't had some success.
Yeah, I
places.
mean, some unlikely places have had a lot of success with light rail. I think Denver, Dallas, you never think of it. What I think makes it particularly attractive in Rhode Island, you still have this, you think of everyone moving to Florida and everything. It's still a very dense population with village centers, town centers. So maybe the best example is the east side of Narragansett Bay. Run a light rail line down through those little towns. So they all have little middles. It's very densely populated. It's perfect for light rail. And you reduce the congestion on the road. Rail is always cheaper in the long run if you figure in maintenance and so on the highways, adding highways, fixing highways. So I really think we should look at this. It'll take some years. This may be a 10-year project. Governor Raimondo will be ex-president then, or ex-commerce secretary, whatever, ex-vice president, but it really, I hope she looks at that. She didn't mention it in her talk. She talked a lot about education and inclusion and stuff, but I think there are these other big issues that should be addressed.
Well, if you want to read more about it, you can read it on Sunday with GoLocal columnist Bob Whitcomb. Anything else you'd like to broach while we have you in the studio?
I talk about J.D. Salinger's the 100th anniversary of his birth, and talk about his resonance still. People still read him. The dialogue is outdated. The time that he wrote about, which is basically the 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, is outdated, but he still has this engaging voice. And, it said something. It's sort of a time capsule of America 60, 70 years ago.
Well, if you want to read more about it, read it in Bob Whitcomb's column this weekend on GoLocal. Bob Whitcomb, thank you so much.
Okay, see you soon.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.